Duck hunting.
I've been fishing.
All right, welcome to I guess it's mid-December, December Big Bend Fishing Report, if I get my words straight here. I am Captain Jay Carson. This is Pat McGriff right here to my left. And down there on the end is Captain Kenny Mullins. We are down here in Keaton Beach at Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals. We want to thank Stephanie for sponsoring this show every month. She lets us come down here and hang out and shoot the bull and talk a little bit of fishing. And we are going to try to do that betwixt all this crappy weather that we've been having here recently. So we'll try to help you out as much as we can. We've been somewhat limited as far as our number of days on the water by the weather here recently. But when it has been, weather's been okay. It's been good.
Correct.
So we'll talk about, kind of what we've been seeing and what we kind of expect to transition here as we get into like the droves of winter, our winter season here. Again, this is the December Big Bend Fishing Report of 2023. We are a week away from Christmas. Just about. Tomorrow is a week from Christmas. And you guys got all your Christmas shopping done?
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about some stuff that we can. Pat brought in some of these really interesting pliers that we might talk about here in a minute, and maybe we can give some gift ideas here towards the end of the show for Christmas. For the fishermen in your life.
This weather won't let me afford Christmas.
I know it's hard. It's hard. I've lost at least 4 or 5 trips in the last couple weeks because of weather, and it's been tough. Again, we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I see there's plenty of people. We got a few people in the chat already. As you join up, if you want to say hello, just give us a shout out. Please feel free to do that. Appreciate all of you that join us monthly here. And just contribute to the show. So appreciate you guys. Where do y'all want to start? I guess we'll start. Let's just start with your most recent trips. I guess maybe just talk about those a little bit. Give you a little recap. I know you were out last Wednesday, Kenny, when it was blowing 25 to 30 out of the north, and you were pretty limited in where you could get to. Which is a common occurrence this time of year.
I was able to get everywhere I wanted to get. Most people wouldn't have been able to. I mean, so we had a lot of the areas to ourselves, but that front had the fish lockjawed. I mean, we call it redfish, but it had trout lockjawed.
Yeah. Anytime you get that strong north wind, and you can anticipate the bite slowing down a little bit.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But before that, we had. I guess what. So what day was that?
It was
Wednesday. What was the date on that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Trying to think. So today's the 17th. That would have been what, the
13th?
13th. Yeah, 13th. So that was the 13th, and then Pat and I were just talking about we had trips the week before that.
I did as well.
And Kenny did as well before that front came through, and the fishing was just phenomenal for a few days.
Every cast.
It was stupid good. Which, when you find that right weather window between those fronts, that's kind of how it can be this time of year. Pat, you want to talk a little bit about the day that you had? I guess that was Friday.
Yeah, I had a feeling that it was going to be that. I could feel it in the air, plus everything, all the planets were aligned, the water temperature was right, the front was on the way, and the breeze was southeast. Southeast, I think, is what they gave, but it was really east most of the day.
Mm-hmm, it was.
And we pulled up, jumped up on a bar, and I didn't spook anything, didn't see anything, and I said, okay, I know where they are, and I pulled off about 200 yards, and it was every cast. 3 feet of water right off the bars, off of up there between Bill's and Adams. It was just, whatever you wanted to throw. You had to find the colors, but you could throw most anything within the realm of the colors they wanted. I had Billy Pillow with me, and he was throwing a Paul Brown Devil in the 91, which is the electric chicken, I believe, the Texas chicken instead of electric chicken. But anyway, it was every cast with him. He outfished Dave and I, Captain Dave Malone, when I was also with us. And biscuits are ready. it was just not fair. Now we moved up about 4 or 5 miles up from there, and in the darker water, every fish we caught was almost twice as heavy for the same size fish.
Interesting.
Those fish had been eating and were healthy and fought. Every time you had a fish, you thought you needed a net, and then it turned out to be a 17-inch fish.
Yeah.
But, they were, like I said, twice as heavy as the fish down in front of Yates. So, that was indicative that all the fish had moved to pre-stage to head toward the rocks and creek areas, and they were exactly where they were supposed to be. Now, I didn't bother to go try to get close. I did get close in front of 2 creeks, but whether you were 50 feet, 10 feet off the bank or 50 yards,
it didn't make a difference.
It didn't matter.
No, I mean, it was, like you were saying, I was out the same day, and every spot that I pulled up to had fish on it.
The day before and the day after was the same.
Yeah, and I fished Thursday.
Thursday,
too.
Friday, Saturday was
it was
crazy.
So I think it's like we were talking. Those fish are staging, before those cold fronts come through, and they put the feed bag on, and then once those fronts come through on the other side of it, they'll get that lockjaw like you experienced on Wednesday.
They may not eat. They may not eat
for a week
till Valentine's Day.
They might not eat for a week. So,
and they, because we had no water, they didn't push in like you would have thought.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's just that the deal this time of year. Whenever you're fishing between fronts, you can usually anticipate the couple days leading up before that front gets here that the bite's gonna be really good, specifically for trout. And then the few days after the front comes through, you can anticipate the bite slowing down a little bit. But that doesn't mean you're not gonna be able to catch fish after the front, but it just might be a little slower than.
It depends on how bad the front is.
I agree.
Well, Kenny says he keeps logs. I keep logs in my head, but the first week of December, you need to be out there. I mean, it's
absolutely.
going to the week after Thanksgiving to the middle of December. If you get the trend, the warming trend, it's on,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on. I couldn't go Saturday, and
Same with
I thought
end
I'd
of
cry.
February. It'll happen again the end of February.
Right.
You better be ready.
Yeah. As far as you said, you were throwing plugs, Paul Browns.
We caught them on Miradines. We caught them on 5-inch assassin plastic. We caught them on
Everything.
the softines. But the suspending baits were definitely better. Anything that was a slow drop for me was better than I didn't throw it. We didn't do well on any lip baits, and I don't think we threw a top water bait.
So we threw that same day, and we threw some suspending plugs just like that Paul Brown. We threw a few slick lures, and then we also had a lot of success on mirror lure Little John, and then other soft plastic stick baits like that, not the paddle tails, but just like a stick bait.
All I threw was nose hooked, weightless, 5-inch.
Yeah, I think that was one of those days where it just really didn't matter what you threw.
I definitely saw, like Pat was saying, a slower presentation was key.
Yeah, and there would be many times where I'd have somebody on the boat where they would be trying to get a knot out of their line or something and whatever, and then they come tight and the fish picked it up off the bottom. That's kind of the day that it was.
Right.
But like I said, I mean, as you get toward to and out before those fronts and after the fronts, I think you have to be a little bit more choosy as far as what you throw, just trying to get those bites for sure.
Well,
Right, and like the people I took Wednesday, I called them the day before, and I gave them the option of canceling and rescheduling because I knew what it was going to be like, and they said, no, we only have so much opportunity. We're
Sure.
going, and we made the best of it.
Let me ask y'all something. Do you notice that on those, as that barometer is falling, those days leading up to the front, trout seem to feed a little bit better than maybe the redfish do?
Yeah, because that Thursday, Friday, Saturday we caught. I mean, the trout. You couldn't hardly catch a redfish because the trout were getting it.
Yeah.
So
So
fast.
just to give you an example, I fished Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday we had a hard north wind. The water was blown out. All we caught was redfish. Thursday it was kind of equal mix. We caught equal numbers of redfish and trout kind of mixed together. And then Friday it was just we caught probably, I don't even know how many trout we caught, and we caught 4 redfish all day. So, and in the same spots.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think it's interesting how
I don't think the redfish had a chance to get it.
it could be that too. It's just the trout were out competing the redfish for the baits. It could have been that as well. So, I think it's interesting to notice that, and it's a trend that I've kind of noticed over the last several years as I've been doing this, is that it does seem like more so in the cooler months you'll have days where all you catch is trout, and then days where all you catch is redfish.
Yep.
Not to say that you don't catch trout on those redfish days, but it's it can be predominantly one more than the other.
And that's the way it was Wednesday. We caught one trout and I don't know 10 redfish.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But we were limited to what we could do too. I mean, like you said, the wind was blowing 30. Negative tide. It
really limits you for sure. Couple guys showing up in the trout or in the chat. Jared Larson, Pat looks thrilled to be here. That's Pat's normal look. That's what you get day to day from Pat right there. Jonathan Moss, my good buddy who guides down there in Mosquito Lagoon, Indian River. Appreciate you joining in, Jonathan. Hope you're doing well. Scott Barwick asks, does heavy rain affect fishing in the creeks, rivers, and flats?
Yes. Which one would you think it affected the most? Is the creeks? Our creek fishing is shut down probably for a week, maybe 10 days, because this water went up into Georgia 8, 9, and 10 inches. It's going to be coming it's going to be percolating out of the ground down here for, what do you think, Kenny? 10 days? Probably the water probably too fresh.
It'll take a few days for it to really hit too.
Yeah, it really hadn't gotten here yet. You can look at some of these ponds along the side of the road, and they'll actually come up over the next few days, and we won't have any more rain. But that water will, on the table, that underground system will, here it comes. Yep. And I live in Ocean Pond, and that pond will come up for 2 and 3 days after it rains in Valdosta.
Yeah, this is always an interesting topic to me because I feel like whenever we get these heavy rains, depending on the season, affects the fish differently. Like, for example, when we get a heavy rain that blows out in the summer, those fish push way out. Because it pushes the bait out there too, right? But when we get a heavy rain in the wintertime, I feel like those fish aren't going to go as far because they don't want to get away from that refuge, that cold water refuge.
They don't go as far, but it affects the bite.
I know it affects the bite for sure, but I'm just talking about fish movement, like fish location. How far are those fish going to move? Are they going to be more tolerant to that fresh water because they don't want to get too far away from that winter refuge if they get cold weather coming in? You know what I mean? Like, so
it's kind of weird because sometimes I've seen them push further in.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems like when we get those big rains, it affects the fish more in the summertime than it does in the wintertime, in my opinion. Just because I feel like those fish are going to be reluctant to leave that warmer water refuge that they have in those creeks, because when that temperature drops after like Monday, or Tuesday, I think it's supposed to be 31, or Wednesday, 31. Those fish aren't going to want to get too far away from those creeks because that's where they're going to go to stay warm.
Well, it's not really whether they move or not, Jay. This time of year, it's just whether or not
they bite or not.
Eat. They're going to shut down in salinity.
Sure.
Salinity can paralyze a fish as much as cold water. Now, it won't kill him, but it will put him into torpor. They can go into torpor from cold or from pH is what they say.
Yeah.
I think it's salinity myself, but who can ask a trout? But it's a combination of the three. When they're all going this way, pointing down, you can stay home by the fire.
Yeah. So, and that was my. So you think those fish kind of hold in the same areas, even though there's abundance of fresh water? They're just not feeding until the salinity comes back.
Yes, and yet I don't do the creek fishing Kenny does, and maybe that you do. But
I do quite a bit.
But
yeah.
I can tell you that you can go in that creek and not catch a fish, and
for sure,
and you can see hundreds or thousands of them, and they'll just shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And you can roll a shrimp over his nose or down his back or whatever, and they won't move for it.
Let me ask you this: do you think those fish are more likely to move to like a warmer water refuge on the flats, like a mud flat, as opposed to being in a creek?
They don't know where it's warmer.
I see them pushing into deeper holes.
In the deeper holes.
Especially like we talked about further back. I've been back 2 miles.
Sure.
And catching trout.
Yeah.
They may ride a current without knowing where they're going. They may run. They choose where they're going, obviously.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is that they go away from something as opposed to going towards something.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So if the conditions aren't right, as like Kenny said, and they're pointing this way and that's up the creek, he's liable to go 2 miles looking for what is not behind him.
Right.
He's not looking for what is in front of him
Yeah.
because he doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's getting away from something. So you can't make a prediction as to where these fish will be. You can just say, why burn the energy? Nature shuts them down rather than let them burn the energy, and that makes sense.
That makes more sense for
And
sure.
So for instance, tomorrow, I have a group coming that's duck hunting one day, fishing the next, and I talked to them tonight. I said, hey, let's fish tomorrow. I know we had all this rain, but it's going to take time. And then we got the front coming in, another front. So I was like, let's fish tomorrow, and I just told them up front. I said, look, I don't know where they're going to be at, but we're going to find them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know they're not going to be. I mean, like for example, they're not going to push out into 6 feet of water. It's like my point. Like they would in the winter, like in the summertime.
Right.
Like in the summertime, if it's like late spring, early summer, and we get a big rain like that, those fish have no problem pushing out into deeper water to get away from that fresh water.
Right.
Whereas this time of year, they're going to be much more reluctant to do that. That was just my point. I think I was trying to make.
The concerning part right now is we've had such abnormal winds.
Yes.
And rain. Combination.
Combination for sure.
I tried to force a bite in the creeks that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because of the
The
water
clarity,
temperature
because of
and
clarity.
the clarity and
lack of thereof, really.
but there just wasn't enough water. That I think the water being pushed out so far, they were in the holes out on the flats and
Yeah. I mean, that's the only place they can be, though, right?
Right.
I mean, when the water's
Well,
that low,
yeah.
I mean, that's what they have to fall into.
yeah.
So Michael Amman's joining us tonight. Michael, I don't know if you're still in here or not, but just good evening to you, sir. Hope you're doing all right.
Which
Go ahead.
last year I hardly fished in the creeks. I had there was plenty of fish out on the flats.
They
and I had
never
to
really
myself.
pushed up into the creeks very good last year, though.
No, but everyone was fishing in the creeks.
Everybody was fishing the creeks, but they weren't in there.
I was out on the flats by myself.
Yeah.
Well, unless I saw you.
Yeah, so I guess let's talk about. We could talk. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but so obviously, with wintertime, we were talking trout specifically here with fishing between fronts and stuff. But you want to just touch on redfish real quick, as far as what you've been seeing and what you can expect.
The bigger redfish have been out on the flats.
Oh, yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, bigger redfish are always, and that's throughout the coldest of winter.
Right.
I mean, even the coldest of coldest winter days, those bigger fish are out there somewhere in between a foot and 3 feet of water.
Yeah, you rarely catch those big ones in a creek. You might catch them on the edge, the first bar in, but it's not. You're going to catch more of your lower to mid slots, and get further back
Creeks
in those
and
deeper
creek
holes,
mouths,
you're going to get more of your rat reds.
Yeah, for sure. Creek mouths are going to be all those lower slot fish between 24 down to the rat reds. But those bigger fish are going to be they're not going to be. You're not going to be able to catch the numbers out there because they're scattered. But if you're looking for those more quality fish, those fish are definitely out on
and a lot of them have gone to
flats.
Tampa too now. A lot of them have migrated south.
I feel they do because you get that mid to late February push where they start coming back in early March. And
I think that's kind of the trend for those. When I say big fish, I mean like overslots, like 27 and up, because you catch very rarely.
But even then,
fish this time of
we
year.
see more of the 25 to 27s that
For sure.
time of the year pushing it, and you can watch the trends. You'll see it start in Crystal River, then they'll start catching them in Yankeetown, Cedar Key,
yep.
and then you'll see them come up to Horseshoe, to Pepperfish, to Sting Hatchie, and you can follow that all the way up.
For sure. And I've talked to offshore fishermen who go out in the wintertime, and there'll be schools of big redfish in 30 feet of water on
there's bulls on the rocks right now in 10, 12 feet of water. You go out there to catch rock bass, and you'll catch a bull.
Yeah, catch a bull. Yeah, for sure. Those fish hang out offshore a little bit. But when we say bigger fish, I'm kind of more referencing like an upper slot
Correct.
fish, right? Yeah. So And I think that's and I do notice that as water temperatures drop, it seems like my predominant bait that I use for most other times, like a gold spoon, is less effective. So
Right.
you really got to slow your presentation down. Those fish aren't going to put in the same effort to chase a spoon down as they would bouncing something off the bottom or whatever.
Unless you get one of those heavy warming trends, then
Did you
For
catch
sure.
your reds on the nose hooking?
yes.
Yeah.
Tell us tell everybody what you were doing. What was the colors?
Watermelon slice, which everyone knows I like to use this time of year. White, of course. I forget what I grabbed the other day. It was like a real light chartreuse back with a white belly. What was that?
Doesn't sound like assassin.
It is.
It is assassin.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is.
Well, the chartreuse back with the chartreuse ghost has green, black, and silver glitter.
No, it didn't have any glitter. I can't remember what it was called. But anyways, this time of year, watermelon slice is hard to beat. Watermelon red and white.
I like pink in that tannic water too.
I'll use pink in
for
a
bouncing
different.
bouncing something off the bottom.
Yeah,
I like to bounce a pink soft plastic or a pink something off the bottom in that.
When I use my little 2.5 inch.
Yeah,
You
those
know,
slim
I
swims
use,
are good.
Yeah, I use pink
Yep.
Ned rig.
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of redfish around, like we talked about. So some days are going to be more productive. It seems like when you have a rising barometer or a high pressure, those redfish tend to bite a little bit better than the trout, and vice versa. The trout seem to feed a little bit better. So just depending on what day you're out there, you can kind of anticipate maybe what you want to target. I know most everybody who comes to fish our area is looking for those specks, so speckled trout. But as far as
get
go ahead,
more red fishermen.
are you getting more?
And more
Yeah,
red.
yeah. Everybody always asks about trout, though. All the questions I get, where the trout out? Where the trout out?
Yeah. But as far as people booking, I seem to get more people wanting
Redfish are more fun to catch, in my opinion. Except for a big trout. There's nothing better than a big gator trout, though. So as far as the outlook as we move forward,
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I love trout. I make a living, and I've been doing it for 33 years on trout. But when I have a customer the Thanksgiving Friday whose girlfriend caught a 39-inch red bouncing, we were fishing 10-pound test, assassin 5-inch, and when he bounced up in a 39.5-inch red, that's the happiest day of his life, and he's been fishing with me for 18 years.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's caught 27 and 28-inch trout with me, but he said, man, that was the most fun. He said, when you netted that fish, he said, I thought I would wet myself. That's not the way he put it. But
I saw that fish. Didn't you post that fish on Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great
And
fish.
last year, his girlfriend caught one on the third fishing trip of her life. She caught a 39-inch. So he was upset that he'd fished with me for 18 years and never caught a fish that size.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like a slob that comes in this big,
Oh,
and
yeah.
30 pounds,
Yeah.
especially when you fish in light tackle
But
and it
for
takes
you-
20
for-
minutes to
yeah,
land him.
For you yourself, personally, though, would you rather catch a 39-inch redfish or a 30-inch trout?
I've caught a 52-inch redfish on 10-pound test line, so I'm past that.
But what about that
I'd
30-inch trout?
I'd rather catch that double-digit trout that I've
Yeah.
never caught.
Yeah.
But you got to go where they are. It's
Yeah.
like 100,
And you got to have conditions right.
180,
Yeah, for sure.
200 point deer. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not on everybody's.
So there's a
graveyard.
I'm going to give Captain's Collective Podcast a little shout out. There's a recent edition with Captain Matt Chipperfield, who fishes over in out of St. Augustine, Jacksonville area, fishes the Gowanna Refuge over there, and specifically targets big gator trout. And it's a really interesting podcast on because he goes into moon phase and moon phase.
Oh, yeah.
and
I
how
mean,
the moon phase.
I kind of touched on that
those bigger trout
last month.
feeding and
Well,
so-
he's on the East Coast, and number one, number two, he's in a system that has a
it's an isolated
residence
for sure.
population
Yeah.
of shrimp in it, probably.
Yes.
And so those fish can get double digit
Yeah,
because
and they got no predators in there. so
they're
it's-
eating 24/7 and they have
Yeah.
no predators.
Yeah, they have
this
no
is the
predators.
same thing goes on in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I mean in Louisiana. or used to. They caught them now.
For sure. But it was pretty interesting because he was talking about one of the guys that he fishes who's Dr. Jay Wright, who holds I think 3 or 4 line class world records on trout, big trout. And the information that he was sharing, it's definitely worth a listen. If you ever interested on big gator trout, it's definitely worth a listen.
And the speckled truth.
Speckled truth is good too,
a great
sure.
one. But speaking of big trout, I mean, which I believe I touched on last month, the 3 days before and after a new and full moon, overcast, wind blowing. I mean, if you're a duck hunter, when it looks ducky, that's big trout time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then whenever you have the maximum amount of water movement.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, new moon, full moon, 3 days before, 3 days after.
Yeah. All right, so I guess as we kind of wind down here a little bit, what do you guys want to just kind of touch on what our outlook is for rest of December until I guess we meet again in January? As far as, I mean, the story's not going to change much, I guess, right?
It's not.
We can say that I can tell you that there's not a lot of, there's no fish in the rivers right now, as far as Ecofina and Alcilla and some of the other rivers. Finn Holloway. There's very few fish in those rivers.
There's not many in the creeks around here.
They're not very, at least as of the last decent weather days we had. There was very few fish up the creeks, just because of the amount of fresh water that's coming out of those right now.
I mean, if you want to catch some smaller reds, black drum, some sheep's head, there's some in the creeks.
I can tell you that the Osceola River is in flood stage, and with this rain that we just had, it's going to continue to be in flood stage. Ecofina River just went into flood stage with this rain that we had the last few days.
Right.
So I can anticipate that all that fresher water, because we get that question a lot in the wintertime. Are the fish in the rivers yet?
Yep.
No, they're not. And I don't know, with all that fresh water, do you think they would even go in there even if the temperatures dropped cold enough? It's one of those types of deals.
I went into some of the clear water creeks south the last couple of days, and
not much going on.
Not much
going on.
You can see every fish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You pull up into those holes and you see them laying down there in the bottom. I think our outlook for this week looks like we're going to have some cold weather coming in midweek, and then I think we're going to get some more rain after Christmas. It looks like. So it'll just be kind of one of those play it by ear, things, if depending on how much rain we get, and
go duck hunting instead.
Stay home by the fire.
He said, Michael Amos says Eki was out past the picnic tables before the rain.
Yeah, I'm sure it's worse now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be way worse now. I don't know. You got a January outlook there, Kenny, as far as what you see forecasting coming up? A lot of moving around.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of moving around. I mean, I keep telling everyone that's calling me, I don't know, they want to fish creeks or they want to do this, do that. I'm like, look, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.
We'll do our best to find some fish, but they're going to be moving.
If we ever can get some consistent, stable weather, I think we could get a better idea of what's going on. But
right.
With the change in weather conditions that we're constantly having between the copious amounts of rain and the temperature changes, it's kind of like a figure it out as you go deal.
Yeah,
I would say that you might have a better chance just going out on the troughs, really deeper troughs, and working the edges of those troughs, because they may have some clearer water underneath that dirty water.
Sure.
Been doing that.
Huh?
I've been doing that.
Well, that's what I would
recommend. When it works, it works. They're moving so much.
That's what I would recommend people that have to go to do. And like I said, then you're looking at the limitation there is water temperature. And didn't you say 52 the other Monday?
Yesterday it was 51.9.
51.9.
That's cool.
Y'all type that into your.
That's cool.
Text each other that number.
Yeah.
And think about it before you load the boat, because that's hard for us as professionals that do it for a living to catch a fish on our rod, much less give a client a fish in 51 degrees. That's very tough.
Yeah, when you get those cold, overcast days and the water temperature doesn't ever have a chance to warm up during the day, that's when you'll see that water temperature drop consistently over consecutive days.
Speaking of that, this is when I start pushing back. Tomorrow I'm not going until 1 o'clock.
Yeah, fish in the afternoon.
Plus, you have the aeration of this wind, WIND we've had for 7 days.
Yeah.
No.
And more days in front of us, too.
7 to 6 days.
I think we've got wind until at least Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, and guess what I'm supposed to do Friday? I'm supposed to take a guy on a videographer and a employee of the Visit Florida out to do a promotional video on Taylor County. And you know what I'm going to tell him? I'm going to call him and say, "How about April, buddy?" Because I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it in January. I mean, if they want to do us a favor because we got kicked by the storm, and the chamber set it up, and I love Dawn, but I'm going to call Dawn first, then I'm going to say, "Hey,
why'd you do this in
we're
the
going
winter?
to move this unless Kenny gets on fish in February. I'll give it to him, but otherwise, no.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll
see
be
you.
on fish in
We'll
February.
see you in April."
February is one of my favorite months.
Brian Volberg says hello to you
Hey, Brian.
specifically. All right, guys. I guess we don't have a whole lot else to share tonight as far as because the weather's been so crappy and we haven't been had that many days on the water.
I've got a couple things.
Okay, go ahead.
One great Christmas present is to buy a gift certificate with this gentleman right here, Jay Carson of
Plug and Fly Charters.
or with Kenny Mullins of Epic Charters, or me, Pat McGriff,
That's
one
right.
more Chaos Guide Service. And you don't have to give away a full trip. You can give a discount. You can give a $200 off or whatever you want to pay. And that person can decide that whether or not they want to utilize it for a trip. But we certainly love to sell whole trips, but I'll sell a partial trip. And like I say, it's a great Christmas present, something they're not expecting.
For sure, absolutely. And we got some great, even during
But we don't want to take you till next year.
I'll take you whenever. As long as we got decent weather, I'll take you.
And if you want other items, Keaton Beach Trading Post.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got a brand new shirt right here behind me. Keaton Beach. Pat, you slide your head over. Yep. Hooded with a little camo on there. Keaton Beach, Florida. So if you want to come down here and check out the collection of apparel and shoes and gifts that they have in here, it's a small shop, but it's high in volume. So you got a lot of stuff in here. As we kind of wrap up, if you guys have any questions that you want to throw in the chat, there's about 50 people in here watching right now. So I'm sure there's some people that have some questions. Please get those questions up. We're going to try to wrap this up here in the next few minutes, but we would love to touch on any of the questions that you guys have here. We try to always do a little Q&A section here. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, Pat brought these, these pliers in. They're called Halco pliers makes them. It's an Australian lure company, but it's a split ring plier, and it's different from your traditional split rings because I know it's kind of hard to see, but it has a little gap right here past the nose of the hook, which makes it a lot more easy to change out the hooks on your plugs, which we do a lot. Plugs are expensive. It's a lot easier to change the hooks than it is to buy a new plug. And so that's a great little thing that Pat, this was my Christmas present from Pat, which I very much appreciate.
Brandy just wants to know about the cookies.
I was making cookies today. Matter of fact, I just finished up my batches. I had 16.
Y'all get the questions in.
Had 16 batches, 32 logs, and
She has been talking about those since last year.
great. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, they're on the way, and I just made my list, and I'm checking it twice.
You might be in trouble, Brandy.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, split ring pliers are always great. I keep a pair on my boat whenever and some spare hooks on there because you never know. You get a big fish, and the stock plug hooks that come on most of these plugs don't hold up to big fish very well.
Yeah, because this time of year, I go to lighter plugs.
Yeah.
I mean lighter hooks.
Yep.
Lighter hooks.
So
lighter
yeah,
leader,
that's
lighter
the other thing,
line.
lighter everything. Real quick, while we got a couple minutes, your go-to baits for the next month.
Mirrodine XL, Catch 2000.
don't care. Take them all.
Watermelon slice.
Two. Pick two. Pick two. Your two
he
baits
got
for the next
three.
month.
A hard bait. My
How about
hard
you, Pat?
bait is same thing as Kenny. At 27, the 27 MR27, which is the Meridine in the middle size, and for my go-to really would be the Paul Brown Devil. That would be my number one, and the XL number two, and then it doesn't really matter. Assassin 5-inch unweighted. Kenny nose hooks them. I run them on a 5/0 offset hook, and unweighted is the key, and patience is the virtue.
Yeah. My two are going to be either Slayer Ink Lure stick bait or the Mirror Lure Little John. One of those two, either one. I like the Slayer Ink.
Or the Assassin P&V.
Yeah. I guess this Assassin make a stick
Right.
bait like that too. now?
P&V.
Yes,
Okay.
it's called the P&V.
Okay.
Which stands for piss and vinegar. Maybe you'll remember that.
But I like the Slayer Ink one just because it's a little bit bigger, and then I can cut it down to the size if I want to. I can cut it down to whatever size I want. Sometimes they want it big. Sometimes they want it, trimmed down a little bit. And then, gosh, I don't know my other one.
You know it.
Well, I mean, we throw a lot of Ned rigs in the wintertime, which I love those, but it's very specific bait on when I like to use it. So as far as like an all-purpose, lure, I think something that's got a slow suspending rate. I've been throwing the slick lure a lot lately.
Do you blind fish with your Ned rig, or do you sight fish
Both.
with it? What's the majority of the time?
It's mostly blind casting.
Okay.
Mostly blind. I like that. The reason I like that Ned rig is because, that Z-Man Elastec is so buoyant. It floats, right? And if you put it on that mushroom head, it literally gets down there, and it's sitting on the bottom, and all the little tentacles and whatever bait you're throwing is just sitting up there, sticking up off the bottom. So those fish are just sitting there. They can sit there and look at it, and they don't have to work very hard to eat it at all.
Especially like in creeks, you can feel that head. Just sitting still, you can feel it working its way down into the hole.
And you can fish it. You can hop it. You can kind of just twitch it along the bottom, so it's literally crawling along the bottom, just sitting there.
He's a bass fisherman who likes to fish in saltwater.
Yeah. My roots are your roots are bass fishing.
Yeah, but I don't bass fish I don't bass fish.
I like to incorporate bass tactics in
That's cool.
the
I can't slow down
saltwater.
I can't slow down that boat. I can't go that slow.
So,
Yeah,
but those would probably be my two.
I've been doing a little more freshwater fishing on these windy days, but it's been catfish right now, the way the rivers are.
Well, I was hoping we'd get some more questions in here. There's a bunch of people in here, but everybody's really quiet tonight. So
They got locked out too. It's cold.
It's okay. So also too, we've got the prime season coming up. In the spring, March, April, and May are pretty much prime. Late February too. I really like late February.
Late
as well.
February is good. My March is booking up. Crazy.
So, but Keaton Beach Vacation Rentals, if you're going to come into town and stay, you need to go ahead and get on the calendar as far as lodging is concerned, because those prime months are definitely going to fill up. Stephanie has a lot of options from two guys that want to come down and hang out for a night or two, all the way up to accommodating large groups. So if you go to KeatonBeachVacationRentals.com, you can see all the accommodations options that she has there. And you can, pick one that works for you and your group or however you want to come in. I just recommended one of my clients to you the other day, so you should be getting a call here pretty soon. Great options. All of them on the water? All of them are on the water. So your guide, if you book a guide, they can literally pick you up off your dock, and then you can go fishing. So make sure you check that out. Come into the store. Make sure you stop by Keaton Beach Bums there, right there on the corner store in Keaton Beach, and get everything that you need. So if there aren't any other questions that are going to pop up in the chat, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. You guys want to add anything before we finish up? Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Happy
New Year.
Have a great New Year.
Happy Hanukkah.
I can't believe that 2023 is already over. It's gone by so fast. But I am very excited about what next year's going to bring as far as
the fishing's got to be better than it was this year.
Some
it was
opportunities.
Strange this year.
It was different. It was different.
Last thing I'm going to touch on real quick. This is kind of side topic. Do you think the mill shutting down is going to affect any of the fishing up where the Finn Holloway comes out?
I've been wondering that. It's I think it already has.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried. Have you fished up that way?
I have fished up there. Yes. Yeah.
You know, some of those spots that me and you like to fish
Sure.
right now, it's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
It isn't for me. Has it for you?
I mean, it's been kind of hit and miss.
Right.
I feel like
Not
it's
like
been
it normally
not
is.
as consistent as it can be.
Well, anytime you drop 1 million gallons an hour, which is 24 million gallons a day is what I was told was the effluent from the mill. Anytime you drop that current out of the system, regardless of the water, color, quality, or temperature, you're going to change the fishing.
Yeah, it's going to move it. Move the fish around for sure.
You're changing the fishing right there just because the water's not coming out.
Yeah, that was just something that I was thinking about last few weeks, you know, with the mill being shut down.
I've been trying to force a bite in some of those areas, and it's just not happening.
Yeah, so.
You know, I don't know if that's the reason why, but, you know, with the water temps are where they should be for those spots. The clarity is where it should be.
Yeah. Well, the water clarity looks like it normally does this time of year.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not even really any different.
Everything aligns.
Yeah, that's weird. All right, let me just give a shout out for these last few people. Tommy Valdez says, appreciate the info, fellas. Tommy, appreciate you joining us tonight. Jason Johnson, who's a regular, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Tim Moody, another regular, Merry Christmas, guys. Really enjoyed your show. All year is what I was. And then Mike Keith, who's one of my buddies over there in Jacksonville, who's a part of Historic Coast Outfitters, and they specialize in fly fishing and spin fishing over there on the old coast over there in St. Augustine. Appreciate you stopping by, Mike. I hope you're doing well. Guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. For Pat McGriff, Kenny Mullins, I'm Jay Carson. We will see y'all next month. Have a great Christmas and enjoy your new year.